CIG have released the ARGO MOTH straight to flyable in the PU. She's a multi-crew salvage ship based on the same hull as the ARGO Mole. And if you're looking for a first-time reaction without any preconceptions about the ship whatsoever, well, you're in the right place, including whether or not they managed to tempt me to upgrade from my Vulture. So I've literally loaded the video and the web page up in order to see them, and all I've got to say first is this. Before we see anything about the ship or what CIG says it can and can't do, I think it's going to occupy a very strange space in the verse in terms of the game right now. We have the Fortune and the Vulture, two single-seat ships that are fully fleshed out and pretty much entirely functional, as we would expect. At the other end of the scale is the other salvage ship offering, the Reclaimer, and the Reclaimer's going to make things weird for the Moth, potentially. She's got space for 5 crew, and there's a lot of systems on that ship that aren't really used right now. That's things like the drones and the ability to siphon off fuel potentially in the future. None of that is available, so even if you want pretty much every seat occupied, you only need 4 people, and I'd argue that would be 3 at a maximum. That's a pilot, someone to operate what used to be the claw arm, rip claw arm, and then the 2 scraper operators. And someone's going to be really bored in that setup. With a ship that's got that sort of cargo capacity and a massive internal buffer for salvage, it's kind of hard to imagine where the Moth is going to fit into those gameplay loops. You've got, I mean, unless it's going to have 2 crew, which I really can't see based on the Mole, it might be in a little bit of a strange spot. Now, there might be a lot of Reclaimer owners out there who decide that the Moth is really, really advanced over what the Reclaimer is. We all know the Reclaimer needs a rework. It's a pain in the backside to get any of the salvage out of the ship, so maybe that will encourage people to move towards the Moth. Similarly, it might not be enough, although given CIG's run of ship design, I'm sure it's going to be pretty good. There's only one way to find out though, and that's to take a look.
The ARGO MOTH is the long-awaited, much-requested medium salvager for Star Citizen.
It's supposed to fill the gaps between our small single-seat salvage ships, such as the Vulture and the Salvation, and the massive Aegis.
Oh yeah, the Salvation. I completely forgot. The Salvation exists too. It's a thing, apparently.
Reclaimer.
She's a good-looking ship.
Small salvage ships, they produce rubble. The large one, like the Reclaimer, they produce construction material salvage. And the medium ship, we create construction material pieces. The refining time for the rubble is the fastest. For the pieces, it's like in the medium part, whereas for the salvage, it's like the longest refining times it will take. For crafting, the difference between the 3 different construction material raw versions of it will be that basically retaining the quality of the material.
Interesting. Okay, so a sneak peek there as to how salvage is going to interact with the kind of crafting system. Using the smaller single-seat miner, or craft it, get there in the end. The single-seat salvage ships are going to break the material down into some sort of like rubble, they say, or some sort of aggregate. So you're going to lose the quality, or some quality, as part of that process. The good news is that refining at that level is going to be very, very quick. And then, of course, it goes up. The better quality or the more quality that you retain, the slower the crafting process, meaning that at the Reclaimer's end, you're going to retain a lot of quality, but it's going to be the longest of the refining processes. That makes sense. That's an interesting take.
With the Moth, we wanted to take our medium operator-sized ships that we have already, we have them all, it's a great ship, and pivot that system over into salvage.
Sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and we thought that building on top of the Mole to make the Moth made perfect sense. The Mole is successful as a mining ship, particularly multi-crew wise, due to the fact that it has all those turrets that can cover pretty much the entire 360 degrees under the ship as well as around it. It's not completely full coverage, but it's pretty good. And the turrets...
It's a bit of a shame he's got to self-edit like that, but you know someone's going to be in the comments complaining about the fact that he said almost full coverage or full coverage and didn't listen to the rest of it before the angry face or the YouTube comments came out.
Have freedom of movement to really mine anywhere. And that really lends itself to Salvage as well, which shares a lot of that sort of similar mechanics.
I think the Mole is a very successful ship in what it's built for. So getting the opportunity to revisit it with the lessons we've learned and put some new life into it with a slightly different role and slightly different purpose was really exciting.
And this allows us to iterate more easily on our current ships that are going out.
Is that a missile turret?
But it
on
also
top?
means that we can take some of those improvements and changes back to those original ships later down the line.
That was a missile turret, right?
We've tried to make changes where they were needed, but not make changes for change's sake. But the kind of like the standout thing, if I'm honest, is it's the arms.
What's your favorite aspect of the Moth?
Yeah, my favorite aspect is the new grinders.
The giant munching arms that it's got on the front. They look great.
They just feel kind of...
Don't say munching, CIG. Don't say munching. Still too soon. Still too soon.
super chunky, super industrial, super dangerous.
My favourite aspect of the ship is the grabby hands.
They look really cool and give it a nice quirk to the shape.
Probably the grabby hands.
Everybody says grabby hands, why?
It is such a key part of the ship's visuals because they're very big, very industrial. There's lots of weight behind them, but at the same time, there's also really intricate little details.
I was trying.
I've got to say, A, yes, 100% grabby hands, and B, when I first saw like the outline, I thought they looked a bit oversized. They still kind of look oversized, but I like it.
Like to make them look a bit intimidating, like a bit dangerous, like you really wouldn't want your hands to be caught in anything. It was also very fun to work on the animations, to kind of figure out how in the different states the arms would kind of retract, the claws would open up, big hydraulic pistons kind of retracting, moving around. And yeah, of course, the crushers spinning.
Are you aware that nearly a decade ago we had another system called grabby hands that has nothing to do with this?
No, I was not aware. What was that?
Disco Lando remembers.
So here's my question. I'm sorry I'm taking it away from the Moth a little bit. Those crunches and things, it's got the grinders. Are they just the rule of cool, do you think? Or are they actually indicating that there might still be some physical interaction? Because they did my boy the Reclaimer dirty. You know what I mean? And no, I'm not going to let that go. Why do you ask?
It takes a crew of 4, so far fewer than you need for the Reclaimer, but it actually gives you some multiplayer gameplay as opposed to the Vulture. All 4 of those players will be able to take part in the Salvage gameplay loop.
Say 4 fewer.
We have 3 manned turrets, each with a size 2 salvage head. And
Did
the
he
pilot
just-
gets access.
Chuck, did he just say 4
So
fewer?
far fewer than you need.
Far fewer. It's not. It's 1 less. You need 80% of a Reclaimer crew.
For the Reclaimer, but it actually gives you some multiplayer gameplay as opposed to the
That's
Vulture.
not far less. Unless
All
they're
4
going
of
to
those
go up in
players
crew.
will be able to take part in the Salvage gameplay loop. We have 3 manned turrets, each with a size 2 salvage head. And the pilot gets access to the main structural salvage crusher.
Can this ship be operated solo?
Yeah, like all our ships, it can be operated solo. But if you operate a ship solo of a certain size, you get some downsides to it.
It would just be a lot of dancing around between the different seats. But at the same time, you're also going to be saving some time because you're going to be able to carry a lot more. So you're going to have less trips back and forth.
Okay.
What kind of defensive capabilities does this thing got?
Very minimal defensive capabilities. This is first and foremost an industrial ship.
Missile turret.
The pilot has 2 S2 slots available to them. The co-pilot gets access to a bespoke small missile rack with 16 S2 missiles.
The belly of the ship has changed quite a lot. We've now got this large split cargo grid that is in a vertical orientation. So when the salvage material is rejected out, it blows straight onto this large cargo grid that kind of takes up the majority of the belly of the ship.
One of the improvements over the MOL chassis is the fact that the cargo grids are just normal cargo grids. Whilst the salvage output does automatically eject onto them and it does use standardized ASU crates, there's nothing to stop you putting any other cargo compatible item on those cargo grids.
Nice.
Which allows you to then perhaps do a bit of cargo. Maybe you find some salvage on the way that you want to do. It doesn't limit you to doing one or the other. You do have the ability to do both at the same time.
The rear of the ship has a really nice cargo lift for 2 16 SCU containers. So you can get a bit of hauling gameplay in there as well.
And just in front of that is the old personnel lift. Both take you up into the newly, sort of slightly reimagined cargo area. From there to the left and right, you've got the entrances to the side salvage turrets, and then a ladder that leads you up onto the main deck.
One of the things we realised as we were working on the ship was to be able to get out some of the components out of the ship, we needed to widen the doors and widen the ladder down to the lower floor. And this gives a nice route through the ship to be able to get those ship items out.
To the rear of the ship from there are the beds and the bathroom and a couple of suit lockers. And then forwards from habitation is into the processing room.
We basically took the pre-existed engineering room from the mall and converted to a processing room.
Feels very hot, very industrial.
Yeah, I was going to say that when you look at the guy getting out of the seat earlier on, there was, from the heat from the vents, almost looked like it was red hot. These processing rooms, it'll be interesting to see if they come into a little bit more gameplay as opposed to just being a space with a name. Because, of course, the Reclaimer has a processing area as well, but they don't actually do much. Right? They're just a space to inhabit, as opposed to an actual function of the ship, like engineering or whatever.
A little claustrophobic. You have an engineering screen in the middle. Some of the components have been sort of reshuffled around to make space for a big refinery, which is on board.
Forwards further.
Did he just say refinery? Interesting.
Still is the bridge, which has the pilot and co-pilot seats.
As we're kind of revisiting the cockpit, we've updated it a little bit, so we've brought in a few new interactions, kind of modernised the view a little bit.
Yeah, the panels and stuff are beginning to look really good and really individual. It's part of what I like about flying in first person at the minute, is just manoeuvring around the consoles with the newer ships. Obviously with the older ships not so much, but
things like the dashboard improvements, the interactive panels that we placed around the ship, those sort of things will kind of be retrofitted back onto the mole as well.
Like the Asgard and the Hermes, the Moth is a new hull based on an existing chassis, and that means it doesn't share paints with the mole.
But we are making some really nice new paints
that's going to upset some people.
for the Moth. So we're going to have a lot of two-tone paints coming in. So you'll see that we have decided to spice them up a bit.
So we're excited now that we have the full set of salvage ship sizes. We have you starting with the Salvation, moving to the Vulture and Fortune. Now we have the Moth, and then ultimately you end up with the Reclaimer.
It was very fun to work on, very nice to work on something industrial.
Just the little changes to the flow that we've had to make, opening up some areas just to allow a little bit of a smoother kind of gameplay experience has been really nice.
This is for the person who enjoys salvage gameplay but wants something bigger.
I do like the kind of thruster arrangement on the back. Externally, that's kind of cool. And I don't think, if they did, I missed it. I don't think they said how much cargo it can carry. But being able to attach other things to the grid, does that make this thing a hauler now? Is that what's going on? You've now got a hauling ship that can do salvage when it suits it? I mean, that's a hell of an upgrade. Yeah, interesting. The other thing I found interesting is that there's some debate over the Reclaimer, right? The Reclaimer seems to, it sits in an extra large hangar, which would indicate that it's capital. It's got capital components on it, but what they've talked about there is salvation to either the Fortune, the Vulture, then up to the Moth, and then up to the Reclaimer. If the Reclaimer is the capital salvage offering, it leaves the large, and vice versa. If it's the large, there's a gap for a capital. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to include capital salvage or large salvage, whichever one the Reclaimer isn't. But that's interesting. Somewhere to go in the future, but, John did just say there, it completes the chain. So maybe that's the end of the salvage offerings for a little while until they, come back and start adding competitors and stuff. So I've zoomed in a little for the text. Yeah, it's a good-looking ship, and it's actually, the other thing I find about it is quite misleading. When you look at it, it doesn't look that big, and then you realise that's two people sat in the cockpit side by side, and then you realise actually it is quite sizable. The standard, I guess that's the trailer. I will probably cut that, and you'll have seen it already because I'll have cut that into the bit, because you don't want to look at me talking too much. This bit's fine, but when it's the big face stuff, maybe not for too long, right? Okay, so 3-man salvage turrets, each with a size 2 salvage laser, as they said. 224 SCU of cargo. Okay, so 192 external and 32 rear elevator. Interesting. Okay, and then the pilot getting to control the salvage arms. The bit that's interesting, that's immediately standing out about this is, one, we've now got more scrapers than you have on the Reclaimer. 2, the cargo is going to be so much quicker to get at because it's external. And also being able to load up externally, that's interesting as well. We saw a hover quad there. If you can get a hover quad there, you'll be able to get an Atlas in there for loading and unloading as well. I think this is going to be a very interesting ship that becomes a cargo hauler that can do salvage when the opportunity arises, and that's quite an interesting loop. I hadn't expected that. It's a bit of an unexpected move from CIG there. Okay, pretty pictures with people in it. Pretty pictures with quasi grazers and quasi grazer eggs. Okay, so internal then. Yes, there are similarities with the Mole. They've obviously made it different enough with the processing bay that we talked about earlier. I kind of like all the signage that's going on. I saw one about please keep quiet in the accommodation area. That I really like. When you're going from A to B and one of you's up and the rest of the crew are doing maintenance or getting their heads down or whatever, because you always need someone on the bridge, ideally on a ship that's moving around. So yeah, you'll generally tend to have people in bed for most of the time as well. So yeah, that's an interesting touch. Okay, factory standard paint, the orange thing, fine. Sundial, I guess it's just metallic orange? That's it, right? Okay. Tide pool, interesting. I'm not sure about the lime green on the thrusters at the back there. That's a bit it's psychedelic maybe, but there you go. Rockwell, yeah, the obligatory dark paint. Juniper, I'm always a bit of a sucker for the kind of olive drab sort of skins, although maybe not so much on industrial ship, but that's not too bad looking either. And then the dolomite, that's the paint for me. If I was going to get one, it would be that paint. Okay, so she's $315 non-war bond and then $290 war bond. Okay, so she's the same price as the Mole. All right, I maybe wasn't expecting her to be that expensive, but then I couldn't recall off the top of my head how expensive the Mole was. I guess what's happening here is, although ships like the Hermes have a higher cargo capacity than this thing does, that's only to be expected. part of that price is the fact that she is a multiple role, effectively now ship. They talked about she's basically, she can be a cargo hauler as well. And that's kind of interesting. So you can do your cargo, you can go to different places, you do your drop-off. And then all those people that abandon ships everywhere, if it's somewhere outside of an armistice zone, you can just go and switch to salvage like that and go and, store that or whatever. And then there was the mention of the refinery. So I guess we'll have a look at the Q&A in just a moment to see what that says about that. Oh God, there's a Lovestruck paint for it. Okay, as the first medium salvage ship, how do you envisage players utilising the Moth in the salvage career path? I mean, that's such a marketing question, because it's just like, where do you think it sits? Between some ships? So yeah, there we go. Multi-operator targeted harvester. What is the ideal crew size? Well, it's going to be 4, right? Because it's 4. Well, at least 1 pilot and 1 crew member up to the ship's maximum of 4. So yeah, can be operated solo with some seat swapping, exactly like the Mole can. Shocker. What are the key advantages that set it apart? 3 independent hull scraping turrets and pilot-controlled structural salvage arms allow the crew to tackle a variety of targets in parallel rather than sequentially. Yeah, so you can be scraping as many targets as you have scrapers. That seems like a really redundant thing for them to say. So there we go. Without the need for several vehicles or the overheads associated with a much larger reclaimer, which is just going back to what we were saying, and this is one of my key arguments against the just get big and earn down idea, is that you're going to need some capital there to keep big ships like the reclaimer running. Of course it will end up making more money, but in the short to medium term, the time for those returns is going to burn through some cash. As they've said, the refining of the materials that the reclaimer gives you is going to take more time than if you'd use one of the single seats or the Moth. The fuel, all the other costs associated with that, having big ships isn't always the answer. So, 224, 96 SCU on the both sides, and then 32 SCU. And then 32 SCU on each autoloader. So 288. Is that not exactly the same as the Hermes? And I know it's not going to cargo. So there we go. The team is aware of the buffer size issue. They use 10 is for it to have 32 per side. Oh, okay. Is it 32 only now? I don't know. If someone's got this in game, let me know. Like stick a message in the comments and I'll pin it. Does the Moth have similar flight characteristics to the Mole, or does it handle differently? Nearly identical. Unsurprising. Can behave differently if not equally loaded. It's good to see that they're going into the weight stuff, even if it's not entirely kind of activated by now. Salvage heads are compatible with all existing sub-items. Right, so they've not gone bespoke, which I'm sure will be kind of happy with that. The trawler and ready grip modules are compatible and can be used in either of the salvage turrets. Okay, so you can add a tractor beam, but it's an either or by the looks of things. Whereas with the reclaimer, it's an and, right? You can switch out to the tractor beam. What size ships can the Moth structurally salvage? Up to the 600i or Starfarer. In doing so, it produces construction material pieces. The Moth being the first ship to create the pieces type of raw material. That's kind of cool. And there's a salvage gameplay guide, which we might look into in a little while. So, 3 man salvage turrets, and then the pilot seat, fine. And then the co-pilot looks to be just the missile operator, assuming that someone will come out of one of the turrets and go and do that. Not designed for combat. That's surprising absolutely no one. And then, as they've already said, it's a standalone chassis because the external cargo grid, so it's going to change the shape, I guess. Again, I know it's going to upset a few people, but it is what it is. So in terms of my thoughts on this, I would say that I can see a lot of people going for the Moth that are interested in the Salvage gameplay. Straight away, just moving around the ship, ease of loading and unloading, and that kind of rear cargo ramp and rear cargo area, having, you know, a little bit more versatility than what we have with the Reclaimer, and just, you know, not having to deal with quite as dodgy an elevator as the Reclaimer has. I think the Moth is going to be a nice step up. It's not, however, that much cheaper than the Reclaimer. $315, $290 war bond. Yeah, this is obviously going to be a dedicated ship. What would be really interesting, and maybe this is you, is those people who often do cargo runs who will sometimes come across a system or a situation where they go, gee, I really wish I had some salvage on me right now. And then, of course, the minute crafting comes in, the ability to create these pieces, I'm sure, is going to be very, very useful as well. And, you know, kind of give them an economic edge because they are the ship that makes the pieces. Will the Reclaimer get the ability to make pieces and be able to do all of the bits below it? Who knows? I guess maybe it'll say in the Salvage Guide. And I'll have a look at that at another time. We have already gone a very, very long time into this video. This does not make me want to go from the Vulture up, just because the whole point of my salvage ship is that I jump in it when I don't have anyone else to play with, or when I just want a little bit of time to myself, do something easy, go out, scrape some stuff, you know, no effort, or, you know, no real effort in terms of combat or having to worry about destruction of my ship. As long as I don't fly into stuff, I'll be fine. And the Vulture is that for me at the moment. I'd be happy to go and sit on someone's, I think. And it'll be interesting once crafting comes in. That may change my mind about how useful the Moth is at the moment. Nice looking ship. For me, right now, I'm going to stick with my Vulture and the other ships that I have in my fleet. And maybe at some time in the future, we'll look at the Moth. Be interested to hear what you guys think, though, especially from those people who, A, have encountered the buffer issue, whatever that refers to in the Q&A, and B, if you're one of those people that's looking at this as a salvage or a cargo ship with salvage capability, that, I think, has got some mileage to it. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.